Good afternoon, everybody. This is Eric Fitzpatrick with the Office of Legislative Counsel here for the first meeting of the 2025-2026 biennium of the Joint Legislative Committee on Judicial Retention. So that everyone knows, I am calling this meeting to order, which is unusual for a member of Legislative Council staff, but it's often done when we have a joint committee that does not yet have a chair elected. This is one of those committees where officers have not yet been elected according to the committee's rules, which hopefully you will henceforth adopt. The three positions to elect are the chair, the vice chair, and a clerk. So perhaps it makes sense before turning to those elections for everyone who's a member of the committee to quickly introduce themselves so that everyone knows who they are before any nominations are made. So as I said, this is Eric Fitzpatrick, legal counsel for the Retention Committee with the Office of Legislative Counsel. Nice to see everybody.
I'm Oliver, House of Representatives, representing Sheldon and Swan. And this is my third year.
All right, how are you folks? Connor Casey, welcome to my district, Montpelier. And this is my first rodeo with judicial retention. I assume it's because I'm down the hall in corrections and the man who knows my way around the prison. So thanks very much. Great to see everybody.
I'm Representative Angela Arsenault, never really wanting to follow Connor Casey, but yeah, representative from Williston. And this is also my third year on retention.
Senator Martine LaRocchia. I live in Burlington, represent Chittenden Central, and this is also my third year in this esteemed body.
State Senator Brian Collmore from the Rutland District, and I was on this committee last year.
I'm Senator Ruth Hardy from the Addison District. For better or worse, this is my 7th year.
I'm Senator Terry Williams from Rutland District, and this is my first time.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for volunteering to serve on this committee. We appreciate, I know that sometimes it's a lot of work and sometimes the hours can be late. So appreciate you all volunteering. I happen to be biased, but I think it's very interesting. So I hope that you will share that opinion after you get involved. So turning to the first order of business, which would be the election of a chair for this year's biennium. So I should say it lasts for the biennium. So it'll be for the entire 2-year biennium. And also traditionally, although it's not in rule or statute, traditionally the chair rotates between the Senate and the House. For the last biennium, the chair was Senator McCormick. So if you were to follow that tradition, then during this biennium, the chair would be a House member. So
I'd like to nominate Representative Angela Arsenault as our chair.
there's a nomination for Representative Arsenault for chair. Is there a second? There's a second. There's been a nomination and a second. Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, I would declare the nominations closed and ask for a vote. Would all those in favor of Representative Arsenault being chair of the Joint Committee on Judicial Retention for this biennium, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. It appears that the ayes have it. And I would at this point turn the meeting over to the newly elected chair for the second order of business, which would be the election of a vice chair.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Collins, for the nomination, and thank you all. I'd like to entertain or ask if there is a nomination for position of vice chair.
I'd like to make a motion for Senator Callamore to be vice chair.
Have a nomination for Senator Collmore. Is there a second?
Also,
Seconded by Senator Williams. Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, what was the word? Declare the nominations
I
over?
believe so.
Closed. And all those in favor of Senator Collmore serving as vice chair, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, the ayes have it. Thank you very much, Senator Collmore.
You're most welcome.
So I believe our third order of business is to it's not on here, right? But clerk.
Correct. It's actually, I know Sue's not on there, but it is in the rules.
Yeah.
So
Which we haven't yet adopted.
Yes, that's
That too. So is there a nomination for the role of clerk?
Point of inquiry, if I could, what does the clerk do in this committee?
mostly records the votes. I don't think there's a great deal beyond that, so that ultimately, later on in the session, when you get to a point where you're voting on retention of particular judges, justices, magistrates, the committee takes down the vote.
Not a heavy lift.
I don't think so.
Nominate someone. I'll nominate Tom Oliver.
I'll second.
Wonderful.
If I got these fingers.
Representative Oliver has been nominated and the nomination has been seconded. Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, we'll declare the nominations closed and ask for a vote. All those in favor of Representative Oliver serving as clerk of the committee, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? I was gonna say. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and Representative Oliver is our clerk. Thank y'all. So now I'd like to hand it back over to you, Attorney Fitzpatrick, to hand out our materials. We're starting with the rules.
Yes. Thank you to the chair. And as you mentioned, the first thing probably would be to adopt the rules, and the statute that I will hand out after that also provides for the committee adopting rules. So I don't believe you have copies in your binder. So there's no copies to bring along. So there's extra for the witnesses if anyone would like a copy. So as I said, the governing statute of the committee provides that the committee shall adopt rules. So these are the rules that have historically been adopted by the committee. You can see by looking at them that they have not been revised. And actually at the date, oh yeah, the date is on top. You see it's 97. So it's been a while since they've been revised. They served you well, evidently. So it's been adopted without change for quite some time. You don't have to vote now to adopt them necessarily. You could take some time to look them over. Maybe do it at the next meeting or at the end of this meeting if you prefer. They're not particularly lengthy. I don't think there's anything that has proven controversial that I can remember. They cover things like, how a quorum is established, how many members are for a quorum, how you go into executive session. Witnesses have to be sworn. That's something that members of the committee may recall from previous, that witnesses are always sworn. That's in the rules. So it's procedural in nature, not substantive. It outlines our process. When I say our, I mean the legislative council's process for how it is that the materials that are going to be in your binders that I pass come to being.
So I'm curious, would folks like to take a couple minutes to read it and then proceed to a vote or table that until the next meeting or the end of the meeting?
I could pass out the statutes and constitutional provisions next and kind of give you a couple of minutes of background, and then people could kind of multicast if we wanted to look at them for a few minutes longer.
I'm okay with that. What's everyone think?
So the establishment of this committee is provided for in the Vermont Constitution. So it's quite specific about the existence of this committee. And then the Vermont statutes, then, as the Constitution also provides, go on to give more detail about how the committee operates, what its duties are, what its function is, that sort of thing. So I put together this document. On the very first page, you'll see are the two constitutional provisions, sections 34 and 36 of the Vermont Constitution. And on the pages after that are the enabling statutes that establish the committee and say what its duties and functions are. So, thank you. So just a brief moment of background, which starts with the very first paragraph in front of you on page 1, which is the creation of the retention committee. You'll see that that's section 34 of the Vermont Constitution, and it specifically provides that judges, justices, magistrates, et cetera, in Vermont, judicial officers have 6-year terms of office. So they're in office for 6 years. And at the end of that 6-year term, they have to make a decision about whether they want to try to be retained for a subsequent 6-year term, to go for another 6-year period. The way that works in practice is that by September 1st of every year, this statutes provide that the judges have to provide a declaration to the Secretary of State's office by September 1st. And that will say, I want to be up for another term of retention, another 6-year term. Secretary of State sends that declaration to our office. And you have copies of it in your binders for each judge as well. So you'll see that. But that's how it sort of happens behind the scenes during the summer and fall when you folks aren't in session. So once we get that declaration or declarations in the Office of Legislative Counsel, we start the process of trying to gather materials that you folks will look at as you're making decisions about retention during the coming year. And that involves a process with the court and the Bar Association, which is working together and cooperatively. We couldn't do it without them. And what we do is we exchange contact information. First, the court determines, for example, all the attorneys and all of the non-attorney court staff, assistant judges, et cetera, who have all worked with a particular judge who's up for retention. And the period that we've used over since I've been here, I'm not really sure exactly why, it could probably be somewhat arbitrary, but we say during the period of the previous 18 months, previous year. Now remember, their term is 6 years, so we're not asking for anybody who's worked with the judge during the whole 6-year period. We go for the previous 18 months. Court provides us with that data, and then we send out surveys, these Survey Monkey anonymous surveys to all these attorneys and the court staff, various other people. And they fill, and these are all also in your binder. They send the material back to us. We collate it, put it all together, and that's the information that you folks rely upon. So that's quite a labor-intensive process that goes on from about September 1st to December, or sometimes more recently in January, depending on how well we're proceeding quickly. So that's the background of how it all works. All of that, what I just described, is outlined in the statutes that I passed around and in the rules as well. I'll note this because sometimes folks ask, like, well, what do we judge? What's the basis of our decisions about whether to retain or not? And you see in the second page of the statutory handout, you'll see a little bit more detail about what the characteristics and criteria are for members of the judiciary. So when you're thinking about how it is that how you're going to come to your decision about whether to retain someone who's up for retention, those are the criteria that are listed in statute to take into account. That's pretty much all I'll say. I think for now, I think everybody knows in 11 weeks or so, there will be a joint assembly, and that's when you all will ultimately vote. The week before that is when, at least according to the schedule, when you decide amongst yourselves as to how everybody's going to vote. But I think you can sort of remember how it works every year, that where you're working toward is that joint assembly, and everyone's going to be ready to have a decision made.
Right.
Any questions?
So, thanks, Eric, and thanks, Joy. I seem to remember that we had some discussion last year, but I realize now it's in the Constitution, so we probably aren't able to do much about it. But the financial integrity piece seemed like it could be of concern to some members of the committee that, we were looking at people's income, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what we can do, but I just thought I'd bring it up. It seems like I remembering we did have some discussions about does that resonate with anything?
Yes, if I may. Of course. We actually introduced a bill. It's not in the Constitution, it's in the statute. And I
Okay.
think Senator Gulick and I did, and then Rep. Arsenault did on the House side, I believe. If
Okay.
I remember it correctly. That did tweak that because if there were concerns about that, and also a couple other things. That bill didn't go anywhere, but I just remembered it myself. So
Okay.
maybe we should bring that up again.
Well,
Because it was the financial integrity, and then there was a couple other things in here change, and then we changed in the bill procedure. There were some procedural things that we also tweaked because of experiences that we had last 2 years ago. So it's based on stuff that happened 2 years ago. We introduced that the last session. So.
That's something that
Yeah.
reminded me of something that I forgot to mention, which is that those materials that you just referred to, Senator Collmore, the financials, as well as because one of the questions on the survey, in addition to the question about person's financial status, are questions about whether any judicial conduct board complaints have been filed, and those are confidential by law. So but there's an exception in the law for review by this committee. So what's done is that the financials and and if any judicial conduct board complaints exist, are not in the binder. They are kept in a secure file by our committee assistant, Lindsay, who's not here tonight, but thank you, Aaron, for pinch hitting. I know Lindsay was not well today, so thank you. But she keeps them in a confidential electronic file, and you are able to access them. And you could access them by physically going to her office if you wanted, but another way to do it, and Senator Hardy, I believe maybe you did it once.
Yeah.
I don't know, you could comment on how it worked, but the way it's supposed to work is that you zoom in, and she's sitting there, and she provides you the opportunity to see the documents, but only while you're both present. And then on the Zoom call, you look at them while you're on the Zoom call. When you're done, say you're done, she disconnects. So that way they remain confidential, but are only viewed by committee members. So you have that opportunity. should
Well,
you
they
choose.
originally were, before COVID, they were all paper copies and you went and did
And
it
a
that
file
way.
cabinet downstairs, and you had to
Yes.
sit there with Debbie.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Those are the days.
It might be helpful too. I think we have 2 new members. Well, 3, but only 2 are here. Just the confidentiality about our whole process here. I know when I was on judicial nominating, we were very careful not to leave that book somewhere where other people could access it. This is a pretty,
These books, though, are actually public record in this case, but you're right that there are times when you're going to go into executive session, or you could, historically you have. And those discussions, as well as the materials I was just referring to, thank you for stressing that, Senator Carlmore, are totally confidential, can't be revealed or discussed. Thank you.
If I may, I'm just wondering what the relevance of this is to the capabilities and veracity of a judge. And also just wondering, do financial statements even illustrate financial probity? I mean, I think I would question that in and of itself. So for what it's worth, I just don't. Not sure why we have it here.
Which part, sorry?
Just the financial and.
Oh, right.
Piece and
I think in theory, the theory has been, and it's total policy decision for you guys to think about and make. But I think the theory is if there were a member of the judiciary who was experiencing financial difficulties, might that in some way impact their objectivity or ability to be neutral in certain cases? I think that's the theory. Whether or not you subscribe to that or think it's therefore makes it worth it to ask them about their financials is totally up to you.
Well, and I think this is true, and you would know, but certainly Judge Sonny would know too, but I think all judges have to file a financial disclosure form so that it's clear when they have a conflict of interest and can't be assigned to a case where they might have a financial conflict. Isn't that?
There's a financial disclosure
Yeah.
required each year under the code by all judicial officers.
Yeah, so this is not necessarily, my understanding, this is not about, the financial integrity thing is not about conflicts of interest, but it's more like what you were saying, is you're like attempting to get at whether or not they're sort of financially stable. Right, I mean because the financial disclosure is kind of like what we were doing in finance today, talking about the financial disclosure and whether there's conflict of interest with an appointee.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there
Representative.
ever a time when folks revisit the statutes, et cetera, and update them or tweak the language? maybe the survey or something for efficiencies in language?
Definitely.
Or-
Yep, that has
And then
happened over
you
the years.
work on
Yep.
that with the judiciary, or how does that happen?
Well, with the statute, it would be, as Senator Hardy was saying, there were bills introduced last year, but in prior years, there have been bills introduced that passed, whether it be updating the statute, tweaking the language a little bit. Yeah, there have been changes made so that if you folks certainly could decide that, well, it doesn't even have to be the committee, it could be individual members, or even the committee has time during the summer and fall to think about those things, and maybe you even all think, well, these are things that should be modernized, changed, whatever, and submit a draft request, and we can certainly do it. It's been done in the past for sure. As far as the rules go, that you don't need a statute to do. You guys can do that yourselves.
And the survey, we did change.
Yep.
Some questions in the last few years.
Mhm.
We had
Yes.
one about COVID, we had one about the filing system that
Yes.
we got rid of after that wasn't as relevant. And
I think there was one also about, I thought I would use the word equity, but it was a word about, there was a question added. Anybody remember what word I'm grasping for here in the survey?
was it bias?
Bias is in the survey, but there was a question added about equal access to justice. That's what it was.
Right, right.
What does equal access to justice mean to you?
That's a new.
Yeah, that was, we added.
Added it.
That would give me another segue, though, if you won't mind, to the chair. One other thing that, speaking of the revision of the questionnaire. So what you'll notice this year when you do look at the survey responses is that once every 6 years, the chief superior judge comes up for retention. And it only happens once every 6 years. So, and in fact, the position is new enough so that it's really only happened once before, 6 years ago. And before that, there wasn't, 12 years ago, there wasn't a chief
It's
superior.
only
judge.
when I'm.
Right, so since I'm probably the only person here were you here 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, just the two of us then. I was gonna say I'll take full blame, but thanks for sharing it with me. The blame I was gonna take was for 6 years ago when I think it was probably Judge Davenport.
Oh, it was
Or
Judge
Judge-
Zoning.
It was?
Judge Grierson.
Oh, it was
Grierson.
Judge Grierson. Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Right. So the issue is that when one of the questions, or many of the questions that are asked of attorneys, practicing attorneys, is about the performance of the judge in court. And that's what they're asking about, which makes sense. That's kind of what you folks are wanting to look at. But the chief superior judge position is primarily an administrative position. So that person doesn't appear in court very much. And I think there's conflicts, and Judge Zoning can talk about it with much more knowledge than I can, but certainly nowhere near as much as as one of the members of the judiciary who's not the chief superior judge. So, as you would expect, very few survey responses from attorneys about practicing in front of the judge compared to the other ones that you get. You'll see, 30, 40, 50, 60 responses, something like that, only a handful. And it was the same way 6 years ago. And at the time, the committee said, oh, yeah, we really have to kind of think of a way perhaps to make that survey particular for the role of the chief superior judge. But since we had 6 years to work on it.
Did we not do it? I thought we did.
Correct.
Oh, geez.
We did not.
Well, you and I should have talked, Eric.
I know we should have. That's what I said. It's my fault.
I thought we did. I remember having
We
the
probably talked about it.
conversation.
Right.
I remember, because Senator Nika, I think, was the chair.
Right.
I remember having that conversation, but we just
Right.
never implemented it. Well, we can still ask.
Yes.
Donate anything we
Exactly.
want.
So this is now it's a project that you could work on this coming summer, fall, if you want. Obviously, it's not going to change anything for this year.
Right.
But I just want to flag that for you.
So we've just talked about statutes, rules of procedure, and surveys. So I want to keep everything separate and how folks feel about adopting the rules of procedure are the only things that we have. The only thing we have to adopt, the only thing we're going to do, take action on tonight or in the immediate. So would folks rather wait and have a time to review the rules more in depth, or are you comfortable with a vote? Generally, comfortable with a vote. Yeah. Okay.
So I would move that we adopt the rules as adopted back in 97.
Thank you.
Poorly motioned.
I accept the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the rules of procedure as drafted in 1997, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
You
Great.
broke.
Seeing none, motion passes. We've adopted our rules of procedure. So I think it's great for us to collectively make a note about maybe adjusting the survey at the end of this process and certainly having conversations about what we might want to do with the statutes. So won't apply to any of the work we're about to do, but it's still very important. So I think, Eric, is it time for binders, or do you want to do the meeting schedule first? Maybe
Either way,
Senator Bueller has to lead. Okay, so I don't want to lose you before we do meeting schedule.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's move to schedule. And everyone should have a draft here, thanks to Aaron. So I want to turn it over to you again, Eric. I know that there was a change.
Can you pass the draft schedule around? I don't. Recall one. Said or well. Just you have one, Madam Chair.
did you pass those out?
That one as well. Yeah.
It's a mystery. It didn't make it to it. The pile did not make its way around the table.
I don't see it. I thought I saw it earlier.
That's too good. Let's scan for a piece of paper. Not in anything. Okay, well. I have yours.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing.
I guess I can look on that, Angela.
Yeah, we can certainly share. Yeah, just definitely. It's not in your file somewhere, or is
Yeah.
that file there?
Not seen it. Nope.
Um,
Nope.
It's a mystery. So. Fascinating. We'll find them tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, so. Chair, you need one, right?
Yeah, I've got an agenda.
Would y'all mind sharing your draft schedule so that,
Yeah, we can look them up.
okay. Okay, so then here we are today on the 5th. That one worked out. Great.
Check.
I got one right here.
Oh, you do one?
Yeah,
This.
Oh. You got a
I
pile.
think I've got them all.
Jackpot.
Yeah.
Thank
You're
you.
Excellent.
You take that.
Okay.
Good to know that. No, I got one. Thank you.
I need one. You need one too, Martine?
That's okay.
Thank you.
Great.
I have a whole bunch of them now.
So. Eric, I think I should turn it over to you, and there was a date that we were interested in potentially changing and want to hear from it. I'm trying to remember how we figured this out last year. You just kind of, everyone goes through their calendar. and we-
I think so.
Yeah,
It's kind of that one last time.
all right.
But yes, thank you, Representative Arsenault. As it turns out, something has come up for me. We can certainly find someone else in our office to cover it if I can't make it, but I can't be there on Thursday, February 20th. So the thought had been potentially to switch that, and you'll see that's the second committee meeting with the second group of 4 judges. The thought had been to maybe move that meeting to the preceding Thursday. So Thursday, February 13th.
Back to back.
So they'd be back to back, exactly.
Oh, so it's Wednesday and.
Yes, because there's already a Wednesday, the 12th. So possibility would be to move Thursday 20th to Wednesday the 13th. But as I say, if that is a problem for people, we can certainly find someone else in our office to cover the meeting on the 20th.
Or we could make it Wednesday, the 19th.
Yep, another option, Wednesday the 19th.
Then we have a week in between. And you don't have to read 10 files or 8 files in 1 week.
You know what? Yeah.
True.
Yes, I was going to mention that I really appreciated the indulgence of the committee last year. Because of certain appointments myself. I no longer referee high school hockey on Wednesday. I gave up all those. I'm only working on Saturdays for games. So all of these dates work for me. I don't even have to look. I don't have
So
to.
I won't probably be here on the 18th. I'm having surgery on the 17th
The
of
19th
March.
Of March.
of March. Oh,
Okay, and luckily that's just that's a deadline, not a
Oh,
meeting
okay.
date,
All
so
right.
we'd be okay, I
Yep.
think. Okay, great to know, Senator Cullimore, that you're,
I won't be a stick in the mud this year.
let's honor your contribution to your community as a referee. So what do folks think about the 19th, Thursday, and Eric, that would be okay for you, Thursday, the 19th?
Wednesday.
I'm sorry, Wednesday, the 19th?
Yep, either of those are.
February 19th, we're talking
Yep,
about.
Right.
Okay, is there anyone for whom that change would not work? And of course, we don't know yet what the judge's availability, but we thought that, Eric and I had a conversation that it would probably make sense to make sure we were all available before proposing dates to our judges, so.
I have checked with them. I told them to keep these days open and it was actually the following week where there was some vacation coming, but
Right,
I think these are okay, but I can check with them tonight. and
okay,
let you all know.
great. So it sounds like the only change we've made so far is to move the Thursday, the 20th is now going to be Wednesday, February 19th for the second group of judges. And we're all good with I'd like to just go through, we're all good with the 12th.
Yep.
All good with the 19th.
Yeah.
The public hearing on the 26th. That is usually fairly short, a fairly brief affair.
We were required to stay in there for a certain amount of time.
Yes, we have done that in the past. You publish, when you publish notice of the public hearing, you say, I can't remember the exact time, but you'll say something along the lines of, the committee will remain there until such and such a time. If no one turns up by that time, we'll adjourn. Yep.
That looks good for most. I'm trying to keep in mind Representative Malay's schedule. I think that she won't be available on the 19th. I'm now remembering, but I'm not sure what we do if one person's not available when we're trying to schedule 12 people or whatever. It seems.
we have quorum at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I was just remembering first and third Wednesday, she's not available. So now we're down to Thursday, February 27th. For follow-up committee meeting, if necessary. I won't be available that day.
Chance I might be out too that day.
What you might conceivably do, in the past 2 years, many times you don't need any, you haven't even had to have a follow-up committee meeting, much less 2.
Right.
I put 2 in just in case, but
Worst
Like you
case
said.
scenario.
yeah, worst case scenario.
Yeah, you could consolidate.
Right, right,
yeah.
They-
Exactly,
For now.
Yeah, we could just do the
Okay.
11th.
right.
Yep. All right.
Just say I can't be here.
Oh, we better not vote then.
11th, 12th, I can't.
So you can record.
Okay,
Oh,
We're voting on ones.
deliberate, vote and make, that's gonna be difficult.
So we
Yeah.
won't do Thursday, the 27th. Is that what we decided?
well, we were gonna skip that one.
Skip that one. Okay.
But I'm wondering, I want to make sure you can get the vote in
On the 12th.
on the 12th, but Tom was not able to be here on the 12th.
Oh,
We could conceivably
They could do it on Thursday. 13th.
Thursday the
13th.
13th, right?
Oh, great. What
Does
is,
that work for folks?
Yep.
all right, so we're going to eliminate Thursday, the 27th as a possible follow-up. We will hold Tuesday, March 11th for a follow-up committee meeting if necessary. That will include all judges, if, from either group, not all judges, but judges from either group if we need to.
You can't be here.
And then we will change Wednesday, March
I'm not
12th.
gonna be here.
Our meeting to deliberate and vote will actually be on Thursday, March 13th.
So you keep the Tuesday, the 11th.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys can
Yep.
Yeah.
revisit.
And then we have a deadline of March 18th, summaries of reports available for caucuses. So that is referring to the written summaries that will basically the floor report, the equivalent of a floor report. That's how I think of it. After the vote, we'll go through and eat with 8 folks. We'll all be, I imagine we'll all
Yeah, it's unusual that they're
We
the
can all
exact
pick
same
one.
number.
That'd be perfect.
So you'll write up your remarks and have those available for the caucuses to view in advance. So March 18th sounds okay though?
Sure.
Yep.
Day before my birthday, March 20th, day after my birthday. Put that on. We could add it right there, March 19th,
Wednesday, 3/19.
Angela's birthday. Joint assembly on the 20th, March 20th. Everyone available?
Yep.
And that's, yeah, that sounds good. Okay.
Super. Great.
The only thing I would add is that you see that the room still says room ? But I did talk to Agatha about that, and she expects that the rooms 10 and 11 will be available for evening hearings by the time the committee convenes again on the 12th. So that will probably be room 10 or
Great.
The public hearing, as I recall, was in the pavilion.
Yeah.
Is that by rule or just what was available?
It used to be in room 11.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
the-
Okay.
Take back 11.
It's just
Let's do it.
For all things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I seem to remember last year that was an availability thing more than anything else, but
yeah, it definitely was.
all right, great. Okay, so I think we're all set with that, which is it's a pretty important piece. So thanks, everyone. We'll move on to another very important element, the binders.
Yes. Distribute the binders. They're on the inbox. There's a few extras so that if witnesses want to have a binder, there should be,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We can leave one for Alicia.
Did you?
Yep.
yes, we need
I've
one for.
been collecting the notes for her.
So we
too.
can leave. I'll throw it.
Fantastic. Here. Those are for her as well.
Connor, is there an extra one there?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of extras.
So I think we have at least 4 extras. So how many folks, one for, right? Yep. I was gonna ask that. That is up
So those
to,
are actually.
Any more? All right.
should there be 2 left in that book?
Should be one,
Yeah.
one left after that and Judge Zone.
Oh, this one, that's perfect. Yeah, well, good idea. I like that.
Yeah, is there anything you want or need to say, Eric, about? Yeah, I think.
Yes, 2
Okay,
things.
yes,
Please.
please.
Yes, so 2 things. One being the one that Terry Curzon just asked about, which is in addition to the binders, I also have an individual copy of each judge's results for the judge. So the question is, how do we want to distribute that to them?
What do you mean each
Copy.
individual result?
In other words, for example, Judge Corbett gets a copy of his results. Judge,
Oh, the survey results.
well, the entire, yes, exactly. the
Oh,
survey
okay.
results.
Okay.
So, yeah, you want to do that? Perfect. One, two, three. All right, you could hand.
I'm solo.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you have one in your book too, don't you? Right.
Did you flip right to your page?
How did you not?
Thank you.
It's the last one.
That good on that issue?
Yeah.
All right, so the last issue I want to note for everybody, it's a relatively unusual circumstance. And you will find this in your binder. This year, one of the attorneys who responded to the survey on Judge Tomasi specifically asked that his name be made public and be passed around to the committee. Because he followed up with an email to me. So he answered the survey, then followed up with an extensive email with comments.
The surveys are anonymous.
Correct, generally. But this particular attorney expressly asked me to make copies of the email that he had sent in, pass that around to everybody, and which you will see when you go to Judge Tomasi's comments, you'll see his name there because he wanted his name included. And I followed up with him and asked him, are you sure? And I have a paper record for this. Are you sure that you want your name publicized? And he said, yes, absolutely. So just so you know, in the back of everybody's binder is the document that he asked me to pass it on. So it's there. So as I say, that's unusual, but that was his request, and there's no rule or it was prohibiting somebody who wanted to be disclosed, who made that request. So there it is. These are public records, and he submitted an email to me, which is a public record, simply asked to be so. And you can review that as you see fit. I just wanted so that in case you didn't turn to the back page and be like, what's this doing here?
Great.
And that was the only other comment I had.
Then, any questions before we wrap up?
I move we adjourn. Well, thank you.
Nice motion, Brian.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?